So Jordan, one of the things that I noticed about you is you landed a 7-figure deal with Podcast One. What was that moment like for you and how did you get there?
Yeah. It's anticlimactic. I love Podcast One. Don't get me wrong. Great fan. The people who work there, I love them. I've been with them for a long time. It was fine getting the deal. I was like, hey, cool, 7-figure deal. That's nice. I find that now that I have money, I don't really care about it, which is a good realization to have. But I think if you have it at the wrong time in your life, it can screw you up. So you ever hear about Olympians who get really depressed when they win the gold medal and then they're like, oh, that's it, huh? That's all. And then they get super, super depressed. And it's like, you won the gold medal. Your life's dream is realized. And they're like, yeah, but I'm not a different person, which is like what I thought would happen. So I knew that would happen because I've had those conversations with Olympians or business people on the Jordan Harbinger Show. And I was like, as soon as I sign this and the pressure is over, I'm not probably actually going to care that much. And I signed it. And I think probably took my wife out to dinner and I was like, that's it. This is it. There's not going to be any fireworks after this. We're just going to go home and turn on Netflix and change diapers like we did the day before. And that was true. Well, I don't think we had kids then, but that was true. And I think if you're prepared for that, that's really good. But if you're not prepared for that, that's really bad. And I know a lot of people that have sold their business and they're like, yeah, I got $190 million. And I'm like, cool, what are you going to do? And they're like, oh shit, I don't know. And then they buy a big ass house and then they go skiing every weekend and they travel around the world and they meet tons of girls online. And then they're like, so anybody want to start another business or something? Cause like, I'm bored as hell. And that's it.
It's about the journey, right? The journey is what makes things exciting, and I definitely find excitement in those daily type of wins and the daily losses, the daily failures. But so for you to not be really stoked and really excited and like, woo, we're going to the moon after landing $1 million plus deal with Podcast One, that to me tells me that you're probably already making a little bit of cheddar before that.
Yeah, I think when I first got this sort of 7-figure deal, the way podcasting works is you start and you make nothing. And then that's usually where people end. But we started to ramp up and make money. And like the first year we made X, then we made 2X the next year, 4X the year after that. So we doubled. And then I think we came close to doubling again. And then it was like, let's sign $1 million deal. And it was like, okay, but we'd already made whatever million before. And what's funny about podcasting is you're talking about a guarantee. So when Joe Rogan signs a $200 million deal, that's more money than he's ever seen in his life. But when most podcasters sign a deal, it's not a windfall. It's actually a fraction of what their show has earned previously, except now it's guaranteed. And it sounds really impressive because it's like, yeah, Podcast One, they bought Jordan's show. Essentially, they licensed the ad sales for 2 years. It's a huge deal. Jordan must be on the moon. And it's like, well, actually, they're only guaranteeing, 60% or something of what I made previously. So there's no risk for them other than unless I don't perform, in which case the deal's terminated anyways. So really it's like, cool, you just got an insurance policy on your show revenue, but you're not now making 3 times more than you were last year. You might even make less. Because
you'd already proven the concept by going out, finding your own sponsors for your show, right? Because sponsorship is your model. That's your model of income generation, right? So how did you land your first sponsor?
So, interestingly enough, what happened was, years and years and years ago, and this probably doesn't count, I would go out and pitch them and be like, here's this really niche show. You should give us money. Here's why it'll work. And they were like, all right, I'll take a flyer on you. You're a nice guy, or we're friends, whatever. And they would do that. We'd put up ads and we'd do ad reads. But real sponsorship, I started to go, hey, I have a show that's worth monetizing. What's going on here? I went to every network. Nobody cared. They were all interested in like celebrity driven shows. This is years and years ago. And it was kind of, the wisdom was really, unless you're Mark Maron, nobody cares about your interviews. And if you're like a certain kind of show, tech celebrity, ideally, like if you're a guy who's on, what were those channels that were like tech channel, like Olivia Munn was on this channel. I can't remember the name of the channel. She was on this channel. Like those people would do podcasts and they would get sponsors. I didn't get anything. So I went to a network called Midroll, which is now Stitcher Midroll. And I talked to a guy there and I said, hey, man, I know I'm not big enough for you to sell ads in my show, which actually is BS. They just weren't interested. What I would love is if you sold ads on my show and instead of paying me cash, you gave me retail store credit that I could spend on ads on your network. And they were like, great, because now they're selling retail for me and they're proving that they can sell my show. That was my angle. But they don't ever have to pay me. They just give me unsold inventory in other shows. And they probably have to pay the creator, but they're only paying the creator like 60%, right? They're paying what the creator's share is. So they're arbitraging my payment from the agency, and on the other side, they're not paying the creator the full amount for that. So they're like making double the money off of every ad that they put on my show. And I knew that they would say yes to that. And of course, they did say yes to that. So I had them sell it for a long time. And then I was like, okay, I'm leaving. And they're like, whoa, you're really profitable. We'll give you cash. And I was like, well, now you're competing against Podcast One and these other guys. And the thing was, if you go to a network and you're like, hi, can you monetize me? They're like, well, we're going to take your lunch because you are desperate and you have no proof of concept. But instead I went, Midroll's been selling me, and this is what they sold in my show last year, and they weren't even trying. And the Podcast One's like, we can do way better than that. We could probably sell 80% of your ad inventory, not 40 or 50 or whatever it was. And your CPM is going to be this. And I'm like, okay, well, you're competing against Midroll. And so I just played them off of each other after that. And I got a really good deal from Podcast One. And I stayed there for 7 years. And so each deal with Podcast One has just gotten progressively larger.
Okay. So you said something here that I think is actually really fascinating, right? Because when you got the deal with Midroll, you weren't actually taking a cash for the ad read. You were saying, just give me credit so I can run ads on other shows on your network. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, you're hearing me. And the other reason I did that was because I had business partners and they were very wasteful. And so I was like, well, if I get 10 grand a month in sponsorship ads, they're going to be like, we need all of that money to pay for, they're not going to say it, but it was like booze and stupid shit. And I don't know if I could say that on your show, but that's what it was. And I was just like, these guys are morons. They're not going to reinvest in the business. Ding. What if we have no choice? Right? Oh, I don't get cash. I only get store credit for ads. Guess we have to grow the lead source for our business, which is the podcast. So they were like, great work. So nobody complained, but I knew the second I got a dime, they'd be like, we need 8 cents or more to, subsidize our stupidity on the other side of the business.
Okay. So we got to lean into this because I'm in a very similar place. Before we get into it, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors here. Yo, are you interested in business ownership? For many entrepreneurs, the journey starts with non-food franchising. Franchising is simply the better option for many entrepreneurs, and demand is at an all-time high. Lucky for you, John Austinson, founder of Franbridge Consulting, is here to help you today. John and his Franbridge Consulting team are part of the largest brokerage in the US and are constantly vetting the market thoroughly. Franbridge is hands down the premier source for the best opportunities in the non-food franchising world. They will find the best business for you, your personality, and your location, from healthcare to dumpsters, from youth soccer to oil changes, even insulation and windows. And the best part, it's 100% fee-free, no additional costs to you. You may have heard John on Entrepreneurs on Fire. He has served as an Inc. 500 franchisor, a multi-brand franchisee, and in fact, he's one of the top 1% consultants nationwide. Listen, sign up for a free consultation with the CEO, John, today, not his assistant, not his sales team. Sign up for free with John today at franbridgeconsulting.com. That's franbridgeconsulting.com. And guess what? He's even going to send you a copy of his book for free, Non-Food Franchising. For free book. You got to love it. So go to franbridgeconsulting.com right now. All right, let's get into the episode. So Jordan, you're taking all the money that you're bringing in from the ads are basically going right out the door, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of where I'm at in my business. Every dollar that I make from advertisements goes right back into growing the show, bringing more people and bringing more listeners in. So I think that brings me to the question of where is the best place? Where are the places that we should actually be spending our dollars to bring more traffic to our shows, because the more traffic we have on our shows, the more we can get from advertisers, which means the more we can spend for more listeners and so on and so forth. So where should we be actually spending those ad dollars?
Well, it's tough. Obviously, the best place to find podcast listeners is on other podcasts. The problem is it's really expensive, and you have retention issues and you have attribution issues. But backing up, I think where most people miss the point is people try and spend a lot on ads, and maybe that works for blogs and, sales copy led sites or video sales letters or whatever it was back in the day where you just drive cold traffic to it. The problem is now people drive to add traffic to media, and the media isn't that good. And so the problem is it's like going to a well to get water, but the bucket you're holding has holes drilled into the bottom. You can make 50 trips and you'll get some water, but like your time would be better spent plugging the holes in the freaking bucket first, then going to get the water. But people don't want to do that because scaling is exciting and it's fun to sort of wheel and deal and watch your stuff grow and spend the money and see the impressions and all that stuff. But the truth is retention is the real game. Because if you're losing 90% of the people that come, and that's not like, 90%, no one loses that. I bet most people lose over 90% of people that they send cold to a piece of media. And you have to retain over time. It's really a brick by brick game. If you're trying to make a big splash by having like a celebrity guest and then drive traffic to it, you're going to find like 99+% drop off, and it's going to get really expensive and it's going to waste all your cash. So the best thing to do is slowly build a really, really big show by showing people that everything you do is good. And you can't really shortcut that process. You can't really short circuit that process. The only way to do that would be to have really, really good sort of celebrity endorsements and lots of them. Like if your plan is for media is going on Joe Rogan 6 times, that's going to work for you. But that's not a sort of repeatable, scalable strategy for pretty much anyone. So you have to build really good quality stuff. If you're not going to have Oprah being like, this book is amazing and changed my life, like that'll make your career, but you can't really bank on that. And most people try to replace that with media buys, and it doesn't work.
That's a good point. Well, and I think that by the time you get that Oprah moment, it's the same thing with your big deal with Podcast One, right? It's been all those little micro transactions that have gone through during that time to get to that point. And, when I think about what really substantiates a great podcast, like what is the common denominator of a great podcast? It's generally the idea that, hey, when I listen, it's going to solve my problem. I have a problem. I listen to the podcast. It's going to help solve my problem. The thing that I find really interesting with your show, Jordan, is you have such a wide range of guests. It's not like, I need to learn how to become a better plumber, or I need to learn how to make side hustle. Like you got Ray Dalio one week, then you got Ludacris the next week, then you got Kobe the next week. Like, is that even possible to do anymore, to have that kind of variety of guests? Like, where's the common denominator?
No, it's not a good idea. My show would be far easier to grow if I was just like the AI show or the show where we talk shit about China, like that. I do plenty of that too, but the Communist Party, to be clear, but like you can't really do that. You can't really have variety until you've built trust with a large number of people. So what happens is I have my audience, community, reputation, brand, whatever, in many ways speaks a lot for itself. And other shows that have that are like Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, really big podcast, Mark Maron can do it. The reason that works is people go, what is this on the Jordan Harbinger Show feed? This is a radical departure from this other thing that he's usually had. Oh, well, I've listened for long enough, or the show's been around long enough that I'll give it a shot, or the show comes highly recommended enough that I'll give it a shot. But it's not a good idea to not niche down. You really should niche down and have something where it's like, this is a show about generating income while you still have your day job. That's much better, clear value proposition. And the reason that's important is because then you can, for your target audience is really clear, et cetera. My target audience is like everybody who listens to podcasts, who has half a brain. Like that's a big ass audience. People who like really good stories, stuff like that. That's a problem. Okay. It's a really big problem. I would grow a lot faster if I had less diverse interests and focused only on a narrow scope. That said, I might also plateau at a certain number of X million listeners a month because it's too narrow. So you really have to be careful. Big, wide variety of guests really only works for really big shows that have a trusted host. I've been doing this for 16 years. Larry King was doing this for, I don't know, like 50, 70 years or however long that guy was on the air. They can get away with it. Right. But now it's not really a good idea. I wouldn't advise that for a new show to be like, yeah, I just talk to whoever's interesting. Cool. You and everyone else. What makes you different? And people will say, well, what makes you different, Jordan? Not really. I mean, look, I can say various things, but not really anything. The difference is I have hundreds of thousands of people telling their friends like, oh, you've got to check out this episode that Jordan did with this thing. So I've got that engine in there already. And then when people look at my feed, they're like, oh, I'm not interested in that, but wow, there's so much here. Look at all these other interesting things. I get that sort of credibility play. I get the extra 10 seconds of someone's attention for that reason. Why is this podcast so highly rated? What do people know that I don't? If you have 4 episodes and 2 reviews, you don't get that. You don't get that benefit of the doubt. It doesn't exist for you. So you have to earn that. And it took me probably a decade, you know what I mean, to do that.
Well, the proof is definitely in the pudding. And when I also think about this concept, right? Because I'm kind of the same way. Like I'll listen to Rogan. I'll listen to like 1 out of 10 episodes because it's an interesting person. It's a person that's interesting to me. And Rogan's putting out, maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 episodes a week. You're putting out a ton of content also, right? But one of the things that I find when I reach out to big celebrity type entrepreneurs, there's people I'm hunting down and I'm going to get you. You just wait. I'm going to find you. But one of the questions that they always ask is, who else have you had on your show? And I've had some big guests. I had this guy, Jordan Harbinger, you might know him, Pat Flynn, Chris Do, David Meltzer. I've had a lot of big Jasmine Star, a lot of great guests. But this kind of shifted me to this idea, this thought of the actual cash flow that's happening behind the scenes, right? I make a good amount of money, guests paying to come on the show, right? Guest sponsorships. In some cases, I'm willing to pay guests to come on the show, right? So I'm just kind of wondering, what are your thoughts on this infrastructure? Like, should we be paying guests to come on our podcasts, or should we be asking guests to pay to be coming on our podcast?
Well, I've got my own opinions on, well, I guess you asked for my opinion on this. I would not necessarily pay a guest to come on, but that's not that I would never do it. Look, if there are like weird covert ways some people ask to be paid to come on. I think I won't mention the name because I don't think they probably want me to do that. But there was one guy who's like a super famous hip hop star, and it wasn't like give me money, but it was like, oh, donate to my foundation. And I was like, okay, but how much? And they were like, oh, whatever. And I was like, how about 5 G's? And they were like, and I was like, so you obviously don't just want a donation. You want a donation that's like, damn, that was a chunk of change. Fine, I'll do your stupid podcast. And we were going back and forth. And it didn't work out because I finally got to the number and they're like, it's an hour. What? No, how about 20 minutes? And I was like, you knew it was an hour to begin with. This is ridiculous. And I just bailed. But because I got to get a show out of it. Right. And a lot of these, so there's that, but I don't really need the credibility play. That was more like talk to a super famous person that's super interesting that you really like and have for your whole life and like get a story out of them and bucket list thing, check it off. Money goes to charity, tax write-off, etc. That's different. As far as having people pay to be on the show, I get that offer a lot. I just jack the price up so high that nobody really would ever say yes. And although there are times where they're like, we can get halfway there. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to give you a full interview, but we can do this other custom thing. And some of this is, I don't think a secret. I did something for Dell and they're like, yeah, do this custom episode. And it was like sponsored content and it was very lucrative. I did something for AT&T where I was on a TV commercial with them and a bunch of other folks, went on Instagram, did some other audio stuff with them. Fine. The point where it gets blurry / sketchy is if like they don't want you to know, they don't want you to tell anyone that it's sponsored content, but they're paying you. And then it's like, well, I'm paying you. So the focus has to be me shilling my new vitamin mix. And it's like, I don't love this. And the reason I don't love this is because it's one, it's an FTC violation, period. It's against the law. But 2, you're asking me to like pretend I'm really interested and endorse something for money but not disclose to my audience that I'm doing that. And so you have to be really careful, because you have to, if you were going to get paid to have somebody on, you should have wanted that person on, even if they weren't going to pay you. And you're just like, great, I also got paid. But making that decision is almost impossible, right? It's almost like, would I have this person on if I weren't getting paid? Well, how are you going to answer that honestly when there's a check in front of you? And it's very tough.
But to that point, I do find that it's a really good filtering tool. Like if someone's willing to pay a few $100 to be on your show, it's because they have something legitimate to say, because I get hit up so much. Like even today, I think I got a half dozen requests to come on the show, so I'm trying to sort out like because what I would typically do is say, hey, go fill out this form and I'm never going to look at it. See you later. And then one day someone's like, what if I give you $50? And that turned into 100 into 200 and so,
yeah. But is it that they have something to say? I mean, they're certainly going to say something, but is it that it's a high quality thing? That's up for debate. I mean, I wouldn't say that just because somebody has $25,000 that they have something to say. Like, okay, if you give me $100,000, I'll probably have you on my show. I have to disclose that, but I'll probably do it. So, all right. Does that mean your message is more valuable than the person who didn't pay to come on? I don't know about that. I don't even think it's equally valuable. I think it's probably less valuable because you're just commercializing it. It's going to be like something about the future of high-speed internet, right? It's not going to be like.
Well, maybe it depends on the space, right? Because I'm in the entrepreneurial space, right? And if someone's willing to pay, let's say $500 to be on the show, because they have a good business that works, they have a marketing budget, and they actually understand the value of being on the podcast. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, do they have a marketing budget? Yes. Lots of people have marketing budgets that are terrible. Look at Herbalife.
That's fair. Cool. Well, listen, before we let you go here, Jordan, I got to get to some rapid fire. You ready, bro?
I'm ready.
Ready? I hope so. What's more important, intellect or humor?
Humor. Look at all the dumb comedians. They're doing fine.
What's the most underrated book?
Oh, God. Underrated book? God. All I can think of are overrated books now, not underrated books. You know what? I really don't know. I don't know.
What's your favorite book that you've recently read?
I read so many books. Let me think. I read like 2 books a week for the show. Good Lord. What's the last? I have to look this up. I don't even remember. Once it's in my head, or once I'm done with the show, it's out of my head pretty much immediately. I read a book on microplastics. It was really interesting. Microplastics and how they're everywhere from the bottom of the Mariana Trench all the way in the air, the water. You're basically ingesting them. You're breathing them in right now. Nanoplastics, anyways. It was called A Poison Like No Other.
Well, that's terrifying. How do you read so fast? 2 books a week that's
at least audio, man. Cruising. Audio while just taking notes, in front of the computer, and I can go really fast if I'm focused on it.
Dig it. Who's a guest that really surprised you?
Really surprised me. Most guests really surprise me. I would say in some way. Nita Farahani, she's Iranian. She's American. She's Iranian. She teaches at Duke, and she talks about ethical legal stuff with emerging technology. And basically, social media companies are going to be able to read our actual thoughts in like a few years. They already can read some of our thoughts using devices, and soon they'll be able to do it remotely, which is friggin' terrifying. And well, everyone will, governments and everything, but social media companies are on the forefront of this, which is like, if you wanted to pick some company or industry that was on the forefront of this, the last one you would want is the social media companies. And those are the ones that are investing in all this, which sucks.
No kidding. Like the suicide rates in young children are up tremendously. And
yeah. Granted, I don't want the government to be able to read my thoughts, the police of an authoritarian state like China or Iran. That's worse. Coming in second is Facebook. Right. That's it. TikTok. Those are the ones I don't want in my brain. I don't even want them on my phone.
Crazy world. What's the scariest movie you've ever seen?
Oh man. Scariest movie I've ever seen? I watch those horror movies. They're always really stupid. I don't think I've seen a movie that's actually, and stuff startles you. I hate that. I feel like that's amateur hour. You know, like, okay, you're going to make me jump because you jump cut to something. Fine. Something that's scary would have to be like a psychological thriller that's really calm. Probably some Black Mirror episode freaked me out more than any horror movie. I can't think of it though.
They'll tell you that Microplastic book freaked me out, and I haven't even read it yet. If you could sit next to anyone on a plane, who would you sit next to?
So we're talking. That's the idea, right? It's not just sitting next to someone who's mute so I can relax.
That would be the first person who's answered that way.
Yeah. I talk to people all day, man. I just want somebody who can't physically talk. That's what I want. Somebody who can't make any noise. Maybe they're actually dead. That would be okay with me, I think. That's pretty amazing. So let me reframe the question. So I don't have to go to ChatGPT, but fine.
Who's one person that you haven't had on your show, the Jordan Harbinger Show, that you'd really like to have on the Jordan Harbinger Show?
Ooh, yeah. There's so many brilliant people. My guest list is a mile high. Do they have to tell the truth? That's always the question. Because I would love to talk to Vladimir Putin, but he's just going to blow sunshine up my ass and not ever say anything substantive because he's a lying, murderous piece of crap, right? So but if it's like, nope, I'm going to tell you everything you want to know with no filter, then yeah, I want like Vladimir Putin on, and I want to hear from him, and I want the truth. I don't want the political nonsense, and I want it in English because I don't speak Russian. So there's that.
That is a cool answer.
Everybody comes up with a celebrity or something, but the problem is you're like, Will Smith, he's going to come on and give you talking points. He's not going to be like, ask me anything. He's going to be like, ask me anything and I will answer about my next movie and when it comes out.
Brilliant.
That's the problem.
Final question here for you. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
Ooh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I've spent a lot of time worrying about not being fine. Guess what? I'm fine.
Boom. Solid. Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate you, brother, man.
You got it, guys. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We got to link up again soon. This was a lot of fun. And
anytime.
Thanks for your time, brother. Make it count.
For sure. Good night, everybody.
Yo, thanks for listening to today's episode. Make sure to subscribe and start taking action. You got any questions? Hit me up, mark@marksavantmedia.com. That's mark@marksavantmedia.com. That's me. Would love to chat. Listen, you got the tools now. You know what to do. Go take action. Catch you next time. Peace.